Hey everyone! So we've just finished breaking down every level 2 spell in my report card series, and I figured something that would be fun to do now that they're all covered is to theorycraft how to fix some of the weaker spells. I'm going to be covering every spell I rated as an F or D and a few C tier spells as well. Today we're going to cover the AC related spells of Barkskin, Mirror Image, and Blur, as well as Web and Gust of Wind, which I have loosely categorized together as naturey spells. Let's get going with Barkskin. So I rated Barkskin F tier, and there are two main reasons. 16 AC is just too low to justify using on yourself, and being forced to use your concentration on such a weak buff for up to a whole adventuring day is terrible. I have two fixes for each spell, one simple one and one that might drastically change how the spell works. Barkskin's simple adjustment is to remove concentration, give a small upcasting benefit, and grant some temporary hit points. This would open up two decent use cases for Barkskin. One, you can use this as a summoner to give your summons an AC buff for the day. 16 AC is still not great, but you can upcast it if the summon is really important to get some more AC, and you can keep them safer with a few temporary hit points. The other use case is as a wild shaping druid. You can cast this on yourself, and you can use the temporary hit points to protect your wild shape's HP and stay transformed for longer. It might also open up some of the weaker wild shapes by bringing their AC more in line with the stronger ones and protecting their lower HP. For the advanced change, we're going to be giving this spell a lot. I imagined, what if we turned Barkskin into a one encounter strong buffing spell? Let's keep the concentration cost gone, and let's change it from a flat 16 AC to a plus 4 AC. This is significantly stronger, and it lets you cast it on many more targets. Normally, Barkskin is only useful for low AC wild shapes, ranger companions, and other summons, but now it's good on anybody. Let's also steal from Stoneskin, and we're going to gain resistance to physical damage, and on top of that, just a touch of retaliation damage because I wanted to add a little bit more. This would make Barkskin a much less boring spell. You don't just cast it at the beginning of the day and then let it sit. You need to think about it more, and it's actually a little powerful and much more widely appealing. Let's jump over now to Mirror Image. I was pretty harsh on Mirror Image. I gave it a high D tier. The main reason is that, for one, it only blocks up to 3 attacks, not necessarily ones that would have hit, and for 2, there are some strong level 1 AC buffing spells like Shield and Mage Armor, but mainly Shield, that really outperform this. For my simple fix, I have first added the ability to upcast for 1 additional duplicate, and I've added the condition that duplicates only disappear if the enemy's attack would have hit without the spell. So if an enemy rolls a 2 on their die, you're not going to lose a duplicate on an attack that would have missed. I have also added the ability to cast on allies. This doesn't matter too much, but it can't hurt, and it could be fun to cast it as a buffing spell. These changes would make the spell much more consistent. You know you're getting value from dodging attacks, and it would upcast very well, because it will give you more attacks to dodge and higher AC. If you precast spells, then this would be very, very powerful, and if you don't, it would still be a solid defensive option. My drastic change would be to give Mirror Image dual uses and up its defensive utility even more. This would certainly make Mirror Image an S tier spell, very, very strong. I've written the description as gain 3 illusory duplicates. Each duplicate gives a Mirror Image charge. Whenever an enemy targets you with an attack, you can spend a charge to make the attack hit your duplicate instead. Whenever you miss an attack against an enemy, you can spend a charge to have your duplicate distract your target, letting you reroll the attack. The first use is really strong. Completely nullifying attacks and choosing which ones to use it on is game-changing. Base Mirror Image blocks the first 3 attacks, which could be strong attacks, or they could be weak attacks that wouldn't hurt you much. Getting complete control over which attacks you block is huge. The second use is the weaker of the two, but I like the flavor of your duplicates mimicking your spell casting or your attacks to give you advantage on attack rolls, if you choose. This is the weaker of the two uses, but you could be in a case where you roll an attack roll with, say, a leveled spell, and you don't want it to go to waste, so you can use your mirror image on it. These changes would certainly make the spell S tier, especially if you precast. Moving on now to Blur. I gave Blur a D tier ranking. The effect is good, but not great, and it is a concentration spell. There is also the Cloak of Displacement, which pretty much replaces using this as a spell. My simple fix has two parts. One is to make this a bonus action spell. I think giving enemies disadvantage on attack rolls is an appropriate effect for a bonus action spell. In 5e, you can do this with the dodge action for no spell slot cost, so using an action and a spell slot and concentration feels terrible. The next part is to change the concentration on Blur. My simple fix is to just kind of have concentration work a little differently. It's rolled when you're hit by an attack. Taking damage from a spell or a surface or anything else, and then being forced to possibly lose your Blur before it even has a chance to do anything is so frustrating. There should be some way to lose the effect, so I think this is a good compromise between full concentration and nothing. For my drastic change to really buff up the spell, that goes out the window. You just get the effect, no concentration of any kind required. I've also added the line, once per turn, the spellcaster can use their blurred appearance to slip away from enemy sight and attempt to hide. I like the flavor of this spell making you difficult to see, so I have it here giving you a free hide action each turn. This would make it very appealing to arcane tricksters especially, but every class could use this. That's all the changes I've suggested for the AC related spells. I tried to make them distinct between all three to keep it interesting. And let's move on now to Gust of Wind. I gave Gust of Wind a D tier rating. It doesn't push enemies far enough, it has a weird shape to work around, and Thunderwave is a level 1 spell that usually does its job better. My simple fix has two main parts, but first, a small change. I've removed the whole off-balance thing. I don't care about it. It's not a main part of the spell at all. For the first major change, the Gust only hits hostile creatures. How this works physically, I don't know. But from a balancing perspective, it's much better in my opinion. The shape of Gust of Wind makes it hard to use, and often you need to work hard to only hit enemies. Let's just make it easy. It only hits hostile creatures. Second change, the Gust pushes you back the entire distance of the Gust plus an additional 17 feet. This might be too strong because it gives you a lot of control over enemy movement, but my thinking is that this would have two main uses. For one, you can just cast this into a brawl. Enemies are going to be thrown away, your party won't be, and a chaotic battle will be made clearer, and enemies will be grouped up at the end of the Gust for a strong AoE attack. The second use would be the standard push enemies into a chasm. It would make it easier to work around, and this is very powerful. For my drastic change, we are going to keep these changes and add in something a little more fun. Additionally, any mundane objects caught in the Gust will get pushed into enemies, dealing up to 1d12 bludgeoning damage based on their weight. This would make the spell more consistent, give it a bit of damage, and it would make it more dynamic with the battlefield, which I think just makes the spell more fun overall. Throwing objects into people, it would be such a good time. It also, I'll admit, it opens up cheese, right? You could just carry around a bunch of objects, drop them in front of people, and use Gust of Wind, which is very abusable, but I think the idea sounds very fun, and it has good use cases. Dealing some damage, messing up the battlefield a bit, throwing objects at people. I think it would be a good time. Finally, let's move on to Web. Web's main issue is that it's bugged. Enemies won't stay in Web for multiple turns, making it much less useful, and there's a lot of competition from other spells that make stronger areas on the ground. My first fix is to just do a couple quality of life things, fix the bugs, increase the radius a bit, and remove the flammability. It makes a lot of sense that the webs can be lit on fire, but man, it makes it much harder to use. This version of the spell would be strong because keeping enemies stuck for multiple turns is very powerful, and it's much easier to cast with a larger radius and no candles messing it up. My drastic change would be to imagine if web was a poisonous web. I've removed the concentration requirement as well, and becoming enwebbed deals 1d6 poison damage. This could also add the poisoned condition, but I have it written here as giving strength and con saving throw disadvantage on top of the standard debuffs. This change, mainly because you remove concentration, would make the spell much stronger, and it would be a good choice to play around, cast early in the fight, and try to push enemies into it. Alright, that's all I've got for today. Thank you all for watching. Let me know how you would change these spells in the comments. There are so many different directions you could take, and I know in the report card videos some people were doing this already, seeing like, oh, how would I make the spell better? It's interesting to read. So yeah, thank you all for watching, and have a good one.